Hey good people, and welcome back to the channel. After watching last night's episode of Naked and Afraid Last One Standing, if I had to rate the episode on a scale of 1 to 10, I'll give it a solid 5. The episode was by far my least favorite episode for the season thus far, and this was due to issues that I had with the episode's pacing. This episode was over 2 hours long, and I felt every bit of it as several scenes seemed to go on longer than needed. I also think it's worth mentioning that the person eliminated from this week's episode was one that I predicted that would be eliminated in my last review. But over the course of this review, I will share my thoughts on the significant highlights of the episode, and I will also share my thoughts on the 4 teams, starting with the strongest to the weakest. So without any further delay, let's jump right in. The first highlight that I want to discuss would be part 1 of this episode's elimination challenge. In the elimination challenge, the teams are tasked with building a spring snare trap. This episode requires the teams to collect mussels as bait for the trap, then they must build the trap, successfully test the trap, and lay mussels down as the bait. The fastest team to finish the challenge gets a goat. The team that comes in second gets a rabbit, and the team that comes in third gets to know that they don't get eliminated, which kind of sucks in my opinion, but they live to fight another day. Now, on my review from last week, the teams that I ranked in order from who I felt were the strongest to the weakest go as follows. Team 1 will be Laura, Max, and Matt. Team 2 will be Patrick, Chini, and Jermaine. Team 3 will be Darren and Kayla. And Team 4 will be Jamie, Suzanne, and Trish. Well, good people, I mentioned this point because this is the exact same order that the teams finished the first part of the elimination challenge. In other words, I told you so. Kinda, sort of. Laura's team really showed dominance through this challenge. They worked as a cohesive unit, and they really utilized their problem-solving skills in order to finish the challenge in a timely manner. Patrick's team was very close to finishing the challenge first, but I think the big difference between the two teams is that Laura's team hadn't eaten in 6 days, and Patrick's team had had several fish over that period of time. I don't know if any of you out there have ever been hungry and desperate, but experiencing those feelings while being in a high-pressure situation either causes you to kick things into a higher gear or causes you to fold under pressure. Now, in this challenge, Laura's team show why they're clearly the strongest team on the show, and it's bittersweet because unless there's some sort of medical emergency, it's fairly easy to predict which survivalists are going to get eliminated and which will make it pretty far in the competition at this stage in the game. But in this elimination challenge, Darren and Kayla tried their best, given that the team was the only team to be down a person. Their best efforts paid off as they powered through the challenge, but if Kai were still on the show, then this team would have easily gotten first or second place, in my opinion. But then we're left with Jamie's team. Last week, I essentially said that this team isn't really a team at all. Instead, they are 3 very skilled survivalists who struggle with trust, communication, and having some system of leadership. Pretty much all the 3 core components to what makes a good team. These issues with Jamie's team were quickly revealed during this episode, as we see the team struggle to let each other know what they were doing or properly coordinate who should be completing which task. I thought that the most telling part of this challenge was when Trish saw that the other teams had completed the challenge and told her team that they came in last. Her teammates didn't believe her, and they continued to work. I don't exactly know what Trish had to gain from lying to Jamie and Suzanne about the other teams, but apparently Jamie and Suzanne didn't pay Trish any mind until Trish had to repeat herself several times, and then they finally got the hint. So all in all, I wasn't surprised with how the first part of the challenge ended, but that brings me to my second highlight, which is the second part of the elimination challenge. Last week, I pointed out that out of all the participants left on the show, Suzanne would be eliminated sooner than later, and my justification for predicting this was that Suzanne isn't on much of the previews for this season, and she also had a weird alliance with Jamie, which undercut the team dynamics when you add Trish into the mix. And I was 2 for 2 in my predictions from my last review, but the way that Suzanne lost this challenge was a huge head-scratching moment for me. In this challenge, the 3 survivalists have to bushcraft a swinging arm pot hanger. Then they must start a fire, boil water in the pot, and move the boiling pot of water to another notch on the hanger to finish the challenge. Now, as the challenge got underway, Suzanne was essentially the first to construct a pot hanger, to get her fire started, and she started the process of getting her water boiled. But I spotted 2 major issues with Suzanne's approach to the challenge. The first issue was with her fire not being hot enough to get the water boiled in a timely manner. The second issue was with the construction of her pot holder. In my opinion, the notches on her pot holder were too open, and had Suzanne been successful in getting her water to boil first, moving that pot of boiled water to a higher notch might have ended in disaster, because there's no way to secure that pot from swinging from back to forth. What I found interesting about this challenge was how cocky Suzanne got when she noticed that she was in the lead, and Trish was in last place at that point in time. Suzanne and Jamie also made some subtle comments about how close their water was to boiling, and Trish was still trying to construct her pot holder. But I admire Trish for being one hell of a competitor. You see, good people, I know Trish got a bad rep from some of her past Naked and Afraid challenges, but in my opinion, a concept like Last One Standing has allowed Trish to shine, and she has earned a lot of respect from people who doubted her skills in the past. But the last major highlight that I want to talk about is Operation Hogwash. A large chunk of this episode was dedicated to showing the feud between Patrick and Jermaine, and this feud stemmed from their disagreement on the best practices for hunting wild hogs. Patrick felt that Jermaine was too slow and cautious while hunting the hog, and Jermaine tried to explain his vast experience in hunting hogs. Here are my thoughts on this nonsense. Patrick is one of the most impressive survivalists who ever appeared on Naked and Afraid. He has shown his skills as a hunter when it came to killing the first big game animal on Last One Standing. Patrick is also responsible for much of his team's success for this season of the show. However, in this particular situation, I think that ego might have gotten the best of Patrick. I think every survivalist on the show has some level of ego, which is also true for most people. But in this situation, you have Patrick, who wants to hunt hogs on his own terms, while you have several other people who agree with Jermaine's take on how to hunt hogs. And by several other people, I mean that Laura, Matt, and even the show's narrator voiced how dangerous it was to hunt wild hogs, while Matt and Laura also agreed that it was best to creep up slowly while hunting the hog. Now, I'll acknowledge that Patrick's approach to hunting hogs could possibly work, but is the potential cost really worth the risk? In that instance, I gotta side with Jermaine on the debate, mainly because I believe in working smarter and not harder. But in the next episode, I believe we shall see. Next, I want to shift gears and I want to talk about the remaining teams, and as usual, I'll start in the order of strongest to weakest. The first team is Laura, Max, and Matt. Coming into this episode, I had this team as the strongest on the show, and this is with the team having nothing to eat over the past 6 days. But in this episode, the team won a challenge, they scored a whole goat to eat, Matt was even lucky enough to strike a wild hog with a bow and arrow, but the hog had gotten away. On a side note, I think that Patrick or someone else might find the hog that Matt struck, but as of right now, I think this team is a well-oiled machine, and they're firing on all cylinders when it comes to trust, communication, and leadership. Now, unfortunately, I could see production shaking things up so that this team is completely broken up during the next leg of the season. All in all, unless somebody gets sick or injured, I don't see any of these survivalists getting eliminated or tapping out before day 21. The next team is Patrick, Cheney, and Jermaine. Although this episode was a little tense for Patrick and his teammates, I feel that they will put their egos aside and they'll find a way to rally together to make it to the second leg of the season. I think that Patrick is definitely the best person on the team when it comes to a concept like Last One Standing, but Cheney and Jermaine have also played pivotal roles in their team's success, and that will continue. I think that Patrick and Jermaine will make it past the 21-day mark, but I'm not fully convinced that Cheney will do so without some sort of assistance. We shall see. Next, there's Darren and Kayla. I firmly believe that Darren and Kayla are still a very dangerous team, but when it comes to time challenges, sometimes having strength in numbers is a hard obstacle to overcome. I think that Darren and Kayla have what it takes to make it to the day 21 mark, but going forward, they're going to have to step their game up when it comes to securing food and finishing it in the upcoming challenges first or second. And lastly, there's the team of Jamie and Trish. I think one of the main reasons that this team was so horrible with Suzanne as part of it was because Suzanne fed into Jamie's nonsense while never really giving Trish a chance as a teammate. With Suzanne gone, I feel that Jamie treats Trish with more respect, and I think that these two could salvage what remains of their team, for the first 21 days of the season. I feel that Trish stands the best chance of making it past the 21-day mark and beyond. But I'm not fully sure about Jamie. Jamie as a competitor was very impressive on day 1, but since then, he has slowly disappeared from the big stage. Furthermore, Previews from the first episode show that one of the cast members was evacuated from the show. It took several people to lift this cast member on the stretcher, but we would never really see who the cast member was. What we do know is that whoever the cast member was had to be somebody of considerable size and somebody who was light-skinned, which leaves Jamie, Matt, and Darren. Out of those three, I'm thinking that it will be Jamie or Matt, but my gut is telling me it's going to be Jamie because Matt getting 2 serious injuries during one Naked and Afraid season would be unfathomable. But these are my thoughts on the episode, and I'd like to know what you all think about the episode. Feel free to leave all comments below in the comment section, and I'll be sure to reply to everybody. Until next time, stay tuned and stay safe. Peace.